Good evening. It's a pleasure to be speaking to the Friends of Tel Aviv University in Buenos Aires. I'm in my Tel Aviv office today. It's a Thursday, and I would have liked to be with you, but we have a very busy schedule at the moment, and I apologize that I'm speaking to you from a great distance. I think the question that is on many people's minds is, how is the Israeli economy doing, and how come it's doing quite well compared with most of the other Western economies or the economies of countries that are reasonably well developed, and particularly in regard to the global crisis. With regard to the global crisis, I think the answer to that question is that we started the crisis in very good shape indeed. We started with a budget that was in balance in 2007. We started with a very strong banking system. We started with a surplus in the balance of payments and with an inflation rate that was very close to the target range of between 1 and 3%. So on almost every indicator that one looks at, the economy was performing very well. The one area which was not so great was that we had a large debt, a little under 80% of GDP, at the start of the crisis. So we were ready when the crisis struck with an economy that you could rely on. As the crisis developed, we undertook a series of steps in responding to what was likely to happen. Among the most important, late in 2007, early in 2008, the shekel started appreciating very strongly. Israel had not intervened in the foreign exchange markets for 10 years, and there was great reluctance to intervene. But when the shekel got to 322, as against a number of 4 to the dollar that most people thought was normal, we had essentially had an appreciation of 20% by the middle of 2008, an appreciation of 20% in 9 months, at a time when coming down the road absolutely clearly was a big recession. You could see it by the middle of 2008 and earlier, and we started intervening in the foreign exchange markets to try to reverse the trend of the shekel. We bought dollars, and we started buying 25 million a day. This didn't have much effect. We went up to 100 million a day. We bought 100 million a day for over a year, and we reversed the trend of the shekel, in the process increasing our foreign reserves from $27 billion in March 2008 to about $76 billion today, the end of July 2011. We all feel much better that we have much larger reserves. Israel is in a sensitive position, in a complicated geopolitical situation, and it's better we have large reserves than that we have small reserves. So that's okay, and we got the exchange rate to behave in a way which was much more favorable for exporters. In addition, immediately after the Lehman Brothers event, we started cutting interest rates very dramatically. First early in October by 50 basis points, and we went from 4.25% to 0.5% in about 5 or 6 months, and got the interest rate down very rapidly. With these two monetary policy actions and a strong banking system, the economy responded very rapidly, and we started growing already by the second quarter of 2009. And it was clear that we were growing pretty well before the rest of the world was recovering significantly, with the result that we were the first at the end of July 2009 to raise interest rates, and we moved from 0.5% then to 3.25% today. On the side of the government, the budget deficit rose significantly as a result of lower taxes, but the government did not undertake, let me say, excessive stimulus actions. They provided a number of measures to help the capital markets, a safety net for pension savers, funds, potential funds to help the banks recapitalize, which were not used because they weren't needed in the end, and several other measures which provided reassurance to the public. And once we started growing, we continued to grow. By 2010, we grew 4.7%. In this year, we see some slowdown of growth. We will be possibly around that number, somewhere like that, with growth possibly slowing through the second half of the year, depending on what happens in the global economy. Now, all that was very successful, and the confidence of the public in the economy was increased as a result of our very good performance during this crisis. We need to ask then, how did we get into such a position? Well, we had a crisis, a very severe one, 2001 to 2003. In 2003, the Sharon government, with the present Prime Minister Netanyahu as finance minister, put in place a very serious and tough stabilization program, which succeeded, and succeeded very well, and produced the situation we were in 2007, 2008. But underlying that was the remarkable performance of the private sector, led by the fact that exports in Israel expanded from 31% of GDP in 1995 to 45% of GDP by 2005. That is an increase of over 10% in 10 years. A very remarkable performance led by the high-tech sector, the most modern sector of the economy. And that, I think, is what lies behind the much better performance of this economy than it was in previous years. Now, we have problems. At the moment, partly as a result of the very low interest rates in 2009, 2010, house prices have been rising very fast, and on this day there are demonstrations against and protests against what's been happening to house prices. This is a problem which has to be solved mainly on the supply side, and the government is acting to increase the supply. This is not a problem that can be solved overnight. It will take time. We've already increased the rate at which housing is built. We've gone from 30,000 units a year to 42,000 units a year, and I expect that will continue. But in the meantime, there's a shortage of housing, and it's leading to distress. People have concerns about high prices of food. Much of that comes from the high prices of food in global markets, high price of energy products, of oil, of gas in the American sense, petrol in the British sense, which have risen very high because of world prices. All these are bothering the public a great deal, and they're leading to protests. These are protests taking place against the background of remarkable economic success. We have the lowest unemployment rate since 1987 today. We're down to 5.7%, which is very low by our historical standards. So we're close to full employment. We're growing. Current account of the balance of payments is in a small surplus. The budget is coming back into balance. All the macro indicators are good, but the society is concerned and worried. And we have to, as a government, we're part of the governmental apparatus, although we're independent, we have to find solutions to these problems. We have to work in the interests of the public. We're not here to do abstract things. We're here to do concrete things to help the Israeli public. Can we do it? Definitely. Will we do it? Well, we live in a very complicated political environment. I hope we'll be able to do it. It's important that we do it. It's important that we increase our spending on education, as the government is planning to do. As one of your countrymen, Manuel Trachtenberg, who's the head of the University Grants Committee, as it's called in England, is doing an excellent job. And we have the people who can do what is needed, provided we get down to work and we work very hard, and we carry out the decisions that we know we should carry out, because sometimes we make decisions, the government makes decisions, but the follow-through is very limited. So we have challenges. We have poverty. Our educational system needs to be improved. We have a complicated geopolitical situation. We have too much concentration in the economy. These are all major problems, but they're not insoluble problems, and they're problems we are working on and we have to continue working on and do better on. So thank you for your support for Tel Aviv University. The universities are a critical part of the success of this country, and we have to maintain the high standards we have had in the past, and I'm very happy that we have the support of you and of other groups in the diaspora for an important reason for the success of the Israeli economy and for the success of Israel. Thank you very much.